Soraya. I like
Hey,
your
Jeff. Oh, we're twinning in ways.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of, sort of. We share a brain
Yeah.
cell.
So we're
Just
going
one.
to be talking about the Dream Syndicate and their tour in the UK
And the Rain Parade
and the Rain Parade.
and the great Vicky Peterson,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
part of this tour.
yeah. So 10 official dates on the tour, in England and Scotland. But before we get started on that, Soraya, and talking about something that has passed, there was another event that has passed recently that I wanted to talk about. There's a lot going on in the Paisley Underground right now, Soraya, but
Yes.
you and I were privileged to go to Susanna Hoff's event. So I wanted to talk about your experiences last night about that. Can you tell us about what you attended?
So I attended here in Los Angeles. There was a talk with Susanna Hoffs about her new book, This Bird Has Flown. And it was part of the Live Talks LA series, where she was interviewed by Susan Orleans. And Susan Orleans was the person who did the 1987 interview of the Bangles when they appeared on the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Oh.
So they have a long relationship. And so I was there to listen to Susanna talk about her book, the process of writing, her excitement. And Jeff, the quote I walked away from, and this is for many reasons why I like Susanna Hoffs, she said that the question from Susan Orleans is, which is easier, writing songs or writing a book? And Susanna Hoff said, well, I'd say a book, and it's the one that I like the most right now. And she said, but songs contain stories, and you can tell a story in a song. And you know me, I love to dig into the lyrics. And so it was just really sweet for me to hear that. I said, all right. It was just a really very beautiful sentiment about how songs and books both have their lyrical component. And she's really excited about this book, and it's been optioned. So we may see an on-screen adaptation soon, who knows, but it's in the development stage. And it was just really great to hear her talk about music, about the things that she's passionate about. Her mom and dad were in the audience. Wow. And it was a nice crowd that came to see her. I didn't get the beautiful opportunity that you did, but I did have something unique at my event. You got to actually see her up close, and she signed your book personally, and you got a chance to have some other things signed. Yeah. But yeah, mine just says Susanna Hoffs. It doesn't have to Soraya. I wish it did.
Yeah. I don't know what this is about, but
aren't those eyes?
Is that what that is?
It reminds me of the What She's Done to Your Mind cover, but maybe they're birds. Yeah. I don't know.
And what's this?
I think that's just like sun.
Yeah.
But I had a really interesting thing happen, and that was she played a selection of songs. She didn't play them all the way through. They were about a minute and a half. She played 4 songs. Wow. And she had Fred Armisen play drums, and the great John Colaci played a cymbal, literally a cymbal, little cymbal, and a drumstick. For one of the songs, the song she played was Under My Thumb, Friday, I'm in Love by The Cure, then Manic Monday, and Eternal Flame. And Eternal Flame was the one where John Colaci was playing the cymbal.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I didn't get a photo with her or be up close, but it was still a great experience, and I'm excited for her. She said, she just sounds really pumped. Very cool. And also she just released, same day the book released, she's released an album that of new covers.
The Deep End.
Yeah, and she said at last night's talk that she is starting to write songs. So maybe we'll have even more from her.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that's some things that have happened in the past. There's some things coming up in early May that include all of the bands that we cover, the primary bands of the Paisley Underground. I wanted to mention those briefly, all within a week. So
Yes.
so Vicky Peterson and Mark Walton will be part of the Continental Drifters playing a handful of shows in New Orleans.
At the jazz festival. Yeah. So if you're on that side of the country, please go. Continental Drifters. It sounds
Yeah,
great. And I'm trying to remember the venues. Chiquiwawas.
Chihuahua. Yeah,
And the other one, Chiquiwawa is just a great name.
yeah, that is great.
Oh, and the other one is at Jimmy's.
Uh,
Yeah. So
First
May
week of May.
5th and May 7th
Yeah. So
in New Orleans. So
we were
please
actually,
go and support.
yeah, we were actually considering going. We were looking at flights and accommodations, but we opted for another event, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Then Rain Parade, um, they're doing a live performance at
May 4th at the
yeah,
chapel in San Francisco.
we've been there.
Yes. And their supporting bill includes the Moore Brothers
I love them. Great harmony.
and
Check them
and,
out.
and I'm trying to, there's just a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other band on their bill.
May 4th, the chapel, San
Oh
Francisco.
my gosh, why am I? Oh, Kelly Stoltz.
Mm,
Kelly Stoltz and Moore Brothers are on that bill. So if you're so inclined and in Northern California on May 4th, go to the chapel, go see them. They're going to be playing songs that you know and songs that you're going to know very soon from the new album.
yep.
And Derek C will be part of that lineup too. So please go and enjoy yourselves, because since we haven't figured out how to teleport ourselves into 1,000 places yet,
yeah.
then we've got one more
A couple
here in
more,
Los Angeles.
yeah, a couple more events. So on that
Yes.
same day, May 4th, what's happening then?
Oh, there's going to be a panel talk moderated by Pat Thomas, but with the 3:00, and really to help talk about and help promote this Yep Rock re-release of Baroque Hoedown. Danny Benaire, Michael Quercio, Luis Gutierrez, and Earl Mankey.
Yes. And we got tickets for that, Soraya. So
we have tickets for that. And I wish I had a Star Trek teleporter, and then I would just beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. I would go everywhere.
And then lastly,
yes. Oh my, I forgot.
A couple days later. So
here in Los Angeles, thanks to the wonderful Paul Rock and Wild Honey Foundation, we have a show of a screening of the Dream Syndicate documentary. How did I find myself? How did we find ourselves? How did we find ourselves here?
Yeah.
Emil Spolder's great documentary. We've had Emil on the podcast, and he's going to be there. Yeah, he's going to be there. Him, Steve Wynn, and I think it's also moderated by Pat Thomas. Pat Thomas and Dennis Duck will be there in attendance. And Dennis Duck, thank you.
So a lot is going on, Soraya, in the Paisley Underground. So
if you're in the Los Angeles area, San Francisco area, West Coast, if you're on the East Coast, there are things for you to do in May. Yes. Within days of one another. Yeah. But let's get into our talk. We're joined by Clive, who we've had on our show before, and he is able to fill in a lot of the points that we wanted to discuss about this Dream Syndicate show. We're talking about some of these set lists and look at you. Yeah. So and we were able to pick this up, and this is something we'll discuss further later on. This was something that was on the tour. We'll talk about this later, this CD set from the Dream Syndicate. But I'd say we get into this. This is probably our longest intro ever. Yeah. Let's get going. All right. So now.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme,
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a groovear.
Let's get groovy. All right, Soraya. So today we're joined by somebody who's seen not one, not two, not three, but multiple shows on this 10-date tour that Rain Parade and the Dream Syndicate did in the UK, playing in England and in Scotland for a couple days. So, Mr. Clive Jones, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we've had you on before discussing your book. One of the very few books there are on the Paisley Underground, only one of maybe two books in them. It was great to meet you in person. We were just talking offline how Pat Thomas noted that you and I standing in the line in Liverpool, you being the first in line, me being the second, were the biggest fans of the Paisley Underground, one from the UK and one from America. So he was glad to see the two of us meet. So it's a pleasure having you on.
Yes.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So,
all right.
Go ahead, Soraya.
Well, all I was going to say is just to kind of give some context to our listeners. So Jeff and I have talked about it, but Jeff and I went over to the UK and we did catch some of the shows. But Clive, I think you caught the majority of the shows.
I did, yes. I started off, there was a Rain Parade show in London at the Betsy Trotwood in a pub in London, which I attended. And after that, we then went into the tour with the Dream Syndicate and the Rain Parade. First show was at a place called Oxted, which is basically near London, on the outskirts of London. Then I went to Bristol, which was near my hometown. That's my hometown show. Then after that, we went up to Liverpool, which is where I met up with Jeff. And the night after that, it was Leeds.
Right.
And that was, then left the tour. So I'd done 4 of the Dream Syndicate Rain Parade shows. The tour went up north and I missed out on Glasgow, Newcastle and Manchester. And I picked the tour up again when they finished in London. They finished with 2 dates in London, one at the Lexington and one at Colours in Hoxton. So it was 6 shows with the 2 bands in all.
Wow.
Okay, Jeff, I always say that you're the guy that goes to a lot of shows. Clive had you beat on this tour.
Oh, by far, yeah. I only did half of that amount.
Okay, so why don't we start at the beginning of the tour then? So Clive, I think for our listeners, they'd really like to hear, I mean, as Jeff mentioned, you've been to so many shows, you're very familiar with these bands. We want to know what it was like that first night when you walked in. And should we start with Rain Parade first, Jeff?
Sure.
Why not? So talk to our listeners a little bit about being at the show and seeing this very unique Rain Parade lineup.
Okay, well, I'd never actually seen the Rain Parade, although they're one of my favourite bands. They made 2 visits to the UK, both in 1985 and in spring 85. That was when I was still getting into the Paisley Underground, so I missed out on them. They then came back in November, but at that time I was actually in the United States, so I missed out on seeing them. And so I never actually got to see them. Matt Pucci actually came to the UK about 10 years ago on vacation, and he played at the Betsy Trotwood solo, but he brought his guitar with him, and he played electric guitar and played a bunch of Rain Parade songs. So that was great to see him, but I'd never seen the Rain Parade. Now, on this particular tour supporting the Dream Syndicate, they were the Rain Parade acoustic. So it was going to be Matt Pucci and Stephen Roback, who are obviously the main 2 in the Rain Parade. And presumably for reasons of budget, they didn't come over with a full band. So the first show was at the Betsy Trotwood in London, which was a gig organised by Nigel Cross, who founded Bucketful of Brains magazine. he was a big supporter of the Rain Parade in the early days, and he stayed in touch with them since then. So he managed to get them to play this extra show, this afternoon show on a Sunday in London. So that was really nice. It was quite a small venue, and we had a nice long acoustic set from the Rain Parade. It's probably the longest set they played on the tour
Wow.
because they were headlining. There was a band called Starry Eyed and Laughing, this great band from Britain, were also on the bill. But the Rain Parade played a set for about 50 minutes or so.
Wow.
So they played some songs that they didn't play anywhere else on the tour. They played a song, Believe, which is a Viva Saturn song. That was the only time they played it.
Wow.
And they then did this really sort of wild encore 10-minute version of David Crosby's cowboy movie,
Oh.
where you had Rain Parade with Starry Eyed and Laughing, the two bands playing together.
Oh, wow.
So that was great.
Wow. This is the first I'm hearing about that. That's amazing. Do you know if there's any recordings of those?
Well, we were told not to make any video recordings or any audio recordings, but
Okay.
you're going to be shocked here to find that somebody actually did make an audio recording.
Oh.
And I'm afraid to say they've actually pressed it on me, so I do have a recording of it.
Okay.
But it wasn't me. It wasn't me that recorded it. I hasten to add.
Let the record show. Let the record show.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wow, that sounds like a great show.
Yeah.
So
And then go ahead, Jeff.
yeah. So I'm surprised to hear that that was their longest performance. I was under the understanding that it was just a couple songs that they did. So, well,
what was interesting was that we had technical problems at the show. Everybody was waiting outside, and there were technical problems to do. I think it was to do with the difference between electricity in the USA and UK. And somebody had to run around to try and fix things. And so the Rain Parade said, because they were starting late, are we going to have to shorten our set? And so the organizer said to them, no, this is the Betsy Trotwood. You play as long as you like.
Nice. That's very cool.
Mm.
So then we moved to the Oxted, right? Which was a little theater, right?
It was a little theatre, it was kind of a strange gig because it was a sit-down gig. It was, as you say, a theatre, so it was as a seated gig, and it had quite a high stage. Probably a capacity of about, I don't know, 100, 150 people there.
Okay.
And I think it was pretty much sold out, so there was a good attendance there.
Yeah, I was looking at tickets the day before, and there were only like a spot here, a seat here. There wasn't a whole lot when I was looking. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make it. We were too busy, but I was looking at tickets for that show.
Yeah, now I think that I don't know the guy who organised it, but I believe he was a Dream Syndicate and a Rain Parade fan, so he was keen to put this gig on.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a good show. At that stage, the Rain Parade were doing, I don't know, 30, 35 minutes, all acoustic.
Okay.
And of course, it was the first time I'd seen the Dream Syndicate with Vicky Peterson.
Oh yes,
which was a real treat.
So going back to the Rain Parade, how did that carry in that theater setting, being acoustic?
I projected pretty well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Vicky Peterson, you mentioned. So Soraya and I were both very excited to see Vicky filling in for Jason Victor. So
yeah.
First night, what was your thought about her playing with the band?
Well, I was excited to see her because I was a big Bangles fan. I mean, she's a different guitarist to Jason. I mean, Jason is sort of a kind of a younger guy, so I think he's absorbed influences from more kind of noise guitarists. Maybe bands like Sonic Youth have influenced Jason. And so you get quite a lot of noise and feedback with Jason. Now with Vicky, you don't get so much of that. I mean, she can pull it out when required, but she's a more orthodox guitarist.
Yeah.
And so I think she was concentrating on, learning the parts to all these songs in a more straightforward manner. I believe that the band rehearsed a pool of about 20 songs. So it's quite a lot for Vicky to take on board.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think she was quite nervous the first few shows that she played. I think she was nervous, but you could see her growing into the role as the tour progressed.
Absolutely.
And also, I mean, you also had her doing her backing vocals, which was really nice to hear that with the Dream Syndicate.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit later about the encore, but even taking on lead on a song or a song and a half or so, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In the encore set. Soraya?
Yeah, Clive, I wanted to piggyback on what you just mentioned about, I mean, because you were so fortunate to see the beginning and the end of this tour, plus many stops in between. And it's something that, it's an observation that I think is really interesting. So because you saw so many, at the beginning you said she was a bit nervous. Where was it, in Liverpool, was it in Leeds, or was it back in London that you felt that she kind of hit her stride in kind of assuming this newish role as a
I
guest?
think it was probably up in either Liverpool or Leeds, that sort of kind of, you know, not quite halfway through the tour, but I would say those two shows she hit her stride. And by the end of the tour, when they played in Hoxton, they did When You Smile as the encore, and she was doing all the feedback for that, not only the intro, but also all the way through the song.
Wow.
And Jeff, you know, when we saw the shows in Glasgow, the first night, there was a difference between the first night and the second night for me. And they were just back to back. And Jeff had, you know, seen the show in Liverpool, and he said, I really didn't want to give you any feedback. He told me, I don't want to give you any feedback. I want you to walk in and make your own impression. And she really kind of blew me away. So it's interesting for me to hear about this kind of evolution over a very short period of time. But the first night, Steve Wynn made this comment to the crowd. He said, one thing I told Vicky about being in Dream Syndicate is, in the Dream Syndicate, we jam.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to hear that at the end, she was really kind of taking that in. That really makes my heart soar, because she's so talented. And it was kind of like learning to go into a different arena for her, and that is to just kind of improvise and kind of jam along with them. And I mean, we all know that Steve likes to do that.
Yeah, well, I think maybe he made that remark perhaps when they were about to play John Coltrane Stereo Blues, because they played that in Glasgow, and they also played it in London at the Lexington. And I think he made a similar remark at the Lexington just before they played it.
Oh my God. Okay.
I did
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I did notice a big change between the Liverpool show, which was show number 3, and then a few days later in Glasgow myself, because and I mentioned this talking to Vicky afterwards in Liverpool, that it seemed like well, I credit it as the Dream Syndicate with Vicky Peterson of the Bangles on guitar, whereas in Glasgow it was like a different version of Dream Syndicate, if that makes any sense. It felt like a little bit like Vicky was out of place at the Liverpool show to me, or not out of place, but it was like she wasn't quite there yet. And I think you said it perfectly. I mean, I would not expect her to be Carl Prakoda or Paul B. Cutler or Jason Victor at all by any means, but it seemed like they were doing their thing and she was like separate. Like it didn't quite fit in all together for me. And like Soraya said, I didn't want to let Soraya know that my feelings on that until she got to see it herself. I didn't want to, not that I would be an influence, but I just wanted to see what her thoughts would be. And then in the Glasgow show, like right away, I was like, oh my gosh, just in these few days, it totally changed. So it's maybe like you said, Leeds. By then, it just totally clicked in, and when I was mentioning that to her, she said it was very daunting to learn 20 plus songs. I put together some of the set lists, and it looks like she did 22 songs, that as far as I can tell. But anyway, she said it was very daunting to try to learn 20 songs and to still be herself, and to interject herself into these songs. And by the time the Glasgow shows came around, I was like, wow, this is like a version of the Dream Syndicate, not with Vicky Peterson on guitar as a separate entity, but more of like part of that band. That's
Yeah,
how.
yeah. Something which I observed with in the early shows, Steve Wynn would be walking over to Vicky to kind of encourage her to face her while he was playing. And as the tour progressed, I thought he wasn't doing that quite so much. He was, he could leave her alone to get on with it more at the end of the tour.
Oh yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So I would imagine that would be normal, right? After um just just learning all these tracks, right?
Mm. Yeah, a lot to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot to learn. And I don't know how much rehearsal they did, if anything, together. That I'm not privileged to know, but I'm curious if how much rehearsal they did on these.
I think they were rehearsing in London the day that the Rain Parade were playing at their own show.
Wow.
So I don't know how many, whether it's just one day or maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a lot of days, put it that way.
Yeah. I think probably some of those early shows were some of the rehearsal.
Yeah.
If you, yeah.
So, Clive, I have a follow-up question for you, and I do want to go back to Rain Parade before we deal with Dream Syndicate one more time. And that is this being the first time you seeing them live, seeing, this acoustic version.
Yeah.
And based on the set list, roughly in the area of about 9 songs, 8, sometimes 8, sometimes 7, but that first night it was 9 songs. Happy to Leave, What She's Done to Your Mind, I Look Around, What You've done, Blue, Broken Horse, Sunday's Almost Gone, Sad Eyes Kill, and Share Your Love. So we had some new and old. What were your impressions of especially the new songs? Did anything strike you about what you were hearing that night?
I think it was a good balance between the old and the new, and the new songs sounded good to me. And obviously, once you'd heard them more than once, they kind of get stuck in your mind. So I by the end of the tour, I was familiar with the whole set more or less. So yeah, I was quite happy. I was very surprised and pleased they did What You've Done, which is this early Rain Parade song, which they never actually officially released, but managed to escape somehow, so people have heard it. But yeah, I was pleased with the set list they put together.
I'm glad to hear that. I totally agree. I feel exactly the same way. It was nice to hear some of the classic songs as well as some of these newer tracks as well. And like you said, there is a bootleg, at least one bootleg with What You've Done on it that's listed as an Opal track.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, which which has annoyed Matt, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And it just goes to, I'd just like to mention that Rain Parade does have a new album coming out where these new songs plus a few more. And the hope is that we'll be having this sometime summer, hopefully June, but it's coming soon.
Yeah.
And
June
then
2nd, maybe.
Of the songs that the Dream Syndicate put together, because you did say roughly about 20 songs were rehearsed, and depending on the night, sometimes you get about 18, 19, all depending. What did you think about that set list that they put together?
Again, I was hoping to hear quite a few of the songs from the first album, which is what we got.
Right.
So again, it suited me. I thought it was a good balance. There were some new songs which had featured on the albums that they put out since the comeback, which was great. But there was also a lot of the old songs, which I was very pleased to hear.
And I always, I've told Jeff this often. Dream Syndicate is one of those bands that sometimes it doesn't matter the venue, they can just occupy it with sound, and it's just this beautiful noise. My question to the two of you, because you saw more than one show, is did you think these venues, did they fit the Dream Syndicate, or because when I'm hearing 100 to 150 people in Oxted, and in Glasgow it was roughly about the same amount. These are small spaces but big bands, that produce big sound. Did you think the venue was suited them?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I've got a preference for small venues myself. I prefer a small venue. The biggest venue that I've seen the Dream Syndicate in, when they did their farewell tour in 1988, they played a venue called the Town and Country Club in London, which is a venue which holds about 1,500 people.
Wow.
But yeah, I thought I like a small venue, and I thought they work quite well.
And
Jeff,
I was gonna say, I think, Clive, for probably most of the shows, you were right up front and center.
Yeah.
If not for all of them.
Yeah, well, that's where I like to be, and I did manage to occupy that space, thankfully. Yeah, as did you, I believe, when I saw you there.
Yeah. I like that space too. So if I'm gonna take pictures or video, I try not to annoy anybody and have like the camera anywhere except where my body is blocking it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then if you're not up front, that doesn't work because there's usually a body in front of you. So it's for that reason. And plus it's nice to just feel the energy of the band up close. So
Yeah.
and I always feel like up front, I always end up making friends for life in that area because those people up front are there to see the show. Whereas further back, a lot of times you'll get people. Well, Soraya and I noticed it wasn't the same for the experience that we had in the UK, but at least in the US, further back you go, people are usually mingling or talking while the bands are playing. We noted that in the UK, the audiences seem to be very much more respectful and focused on what was happening on the stage.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah. Something that was interesting about the Rain Parade sets was they were doing the set list that Soraya has outlined. Now, I've got a thing about No Easy Way Down. It's one of my favourite all-time songs by any band. So after the Bristol show, I talked to Matt and I said to him, "Are you going to play No Easy Way Down, Matt? You've done 3 shows and you haven't played it. Are you going to play it?" And he said, "Well, we would need Dennis to play drums on that if we were going to play it." So I thought that probably means they're not going to play it. So then we go up to Liverpool, which is the show you were at, and lo and behold, Dennis Duck comes out and they play No Easy Way Down.
Yeah.
So we have you to thank for that. Thank
Well,
you.
it may be coincidence or maybe not.
No,
I don't think that was coincidence.
One other thing I want to mention, and thank you, Clive, for bringing this up. And I think the 3 of us can share stories until the cows come home about this. We had a really unique opportunity after these shows to sit and chat with band members, and because it was such an intimate setting, it was really conducive to that. So I'm kind of giggling that you said, "Hey Matt, how come you don't play No Easy Way Down?" Boom, Dennis Duck comes out and we get to hear it. I thought that was great.
For the rest of the tour after that too.
Right, exactly. So thank you, Clive.
Yes, thank you very
For
much.
planting that in his ear. But it was really interesting. And I think I remarked I had been able to touch base or at least say hello to every single person that I saw on stage, and that included Vicky Peterson. So it was just really unique. And I was curious, was there anyone that you spoke to that you walked away saying, "Wow, I'm really glad I got to spend some time with that person"?
Well, I think it was notable that all the band members came out and would talk to people, which was very good. There wasn't one of them who was kind of sulking backstage, was there? They were all out there, and it was nice to have a brief chat with all of them. I feel as if you don't want to monopolize their time on these occasions because there's dozens of other people who want to speak to them as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Was there someone that you got? I mean, you've chatted at some point throughout the many shows that you've gone to with all of them, but was there someone that you sat and chatted with and said, "Wow, I'm really glad that happened"?
No, I think it was just neat as you both expressed that everybody was available, and I just thought that was great. I mean, we did get to speak with everybody that was on stage, including Pat Thomas, who helped put this together.
Absolutely.
And it was just great being able to speak with everybody and just get an idea of how they felt about the shows, and just chat about life in general. So it wasn't even specific to the shows, but I thought that was just a really neat opportunity. And I think being in a different country and kind of being isolated away from like home. So if it's in LA, that's another story. Everybody zips off home or wherever. But we're all, us Americans are all kind of like isolated there. So we had that opportunity of almost like being on an island, which literally we were.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was a very unique experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was, now that you mentioned that, I will just add this little anecdote. I happened to be sitting at a table with Jeff's wife, Christina, and we saw Stephen Roback, and I just said hello, fully expecting him to continue. And he sat down and he said, "It's so nice to see a familiar face from home." And Christina and I, we just looked at each other, and it was kind of surreal, but it was really very sweet. And
Yeah.
so it was just nice as a fan to have that moment. And one thing I also wanted to mention, in Glasgow, there were people who had been at the shows in 85, and they said, "The last time I saw Rain Parade was in 1985, and I'm so glad I'm here to see them again." And I mean, it was really impressive to me that people had been so patient and waited and got to see them. So it was really cool.
Well, I thought that I would never have the opportunity to see them because I couldn't see them coming over, but now they've made it over. I want the full band back.
And you know what? I think I think you're gonna get it with this new album. I mean, I think they're very focused on wanting to take this on the road at some point. So be careful, Clive, what you wish for. Yeah, I think you're gonna have them in your backyard very
Great.
soon. So let me ask the two of you, because you've seen more Dream Syndicate shows than I have. Where does this fall in your list? I mean, these were good shows, they were strong shows, they were fun shows. But as guys who've seen them before, any sort of point of comparison or anything you want to observe about, among the 50 odd shows I've seen, this is pretty much up there, or no?
Well, I would say they were kind of at the top for me because of the involvement of Vicky, which made it a bit more of a Paisley fest, really. I didn't see the original band. I didn't see the band with Carl Prokoda. They came over in 1984. I didn't see that, but I saw the version of the band with Paul B. Cutler. They played at the Glastonbury Festival in 1986, which I saw. And they did this farewell tour in 1988, which I saw. And then since the comeback, I mean, the Dream Syndicate have come over quite a few times and played in London and maybe one or two cities in the provinces. So I've probably seen them about 8 times prior to this tour. But as far as the song selection was concerned, and also the bonus of having Vicky in the band, this has probably been my favorite of all the times that I've seen them.
Wonderful. And Clive, favorite song that they played for you this time around?
Favorite song? I really like Halloween, because that's the song where Steve Wynn kind of tends to let rip more than any other song, and I really like that bit where he lets go on the guitar.
Wonderful. All right, Jeff, where did this, for you, in all your Dream Syndicate shows, where does this place?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. It's definitely way high up on the list. But I recall the first time that I saw Jason Victor playing, and my mind was just blown. I absolutely love that guy on guitar, but it was very special and very unique to see um, Bengal Vicky on guitar. So, and as we mentioned, like especially by the time I got to Glasgow, she just was like on fire and just a part of that band. So it was a very very unique experience, and for that reason, I have to say it was real high up on my list. I'm glad that the Liverpool show wasn't the only opportunity that I had to see Vicky with the band. And the band was on fire. I mean, Steve Wynn in Liverpool and Mark and Dennis, they were just on fire. And Vicky was feeling her way. So it was really unique to get to see that too. So I'm really happy that I got to see more than one show while I was there, but definitely way high up on the list, probably two or three.
Favorite song, Jeff?
You know
That you
what?
got to hear?
It was difficult to say. It was really neat to get to see John Coltrane Blues, but I have to say I really liked the live version of Put Some Miles On. It was almost punk rock
Yep.
when they did that, and it was just that one really stood out to me unexpectedly. I didn't expect it to be that great, but like Clive, I mean, The Days of Wine and Roses is such a classic Paisley Underground album. Anything from that is great. And they did a few different versions of The Days of Wine and Roses, primarily the same, but they've been doing this thing where they'll have a stop towards the end of the song, and sometimes like an uncomfortably long silence, maybe like a minute it feels like, before they kick back in, and it's great. And they did that in Liverpool. They didn't do that that version in the Glasgow shows. They didn't have that stop point, but that's always great to hear. So yeah, probably I would have, if I had to pick one song, Put Some Miles On was
Okay.
just great.
All right. So now I'm going to ask you to something else. So I believe it was the second night in Glasgow during the encore. Steve Wynn addressed the crowd, and he says, "What you have on stage is," he says, "it's like the Paisley All Stars." And Jeff and I were talking after the show, and I said, could you imagine a show kind of like 3x4 where you do have the Paisley Underground All Stars? My question to you, Clive, and to you, Jeff, do you think a show like that, I guess like kind of a 3x4 reunion of sorts, could that be a show that should be on the road? Because Jeff and I started thinking about lineups and songs and all that. What do you think, Clive? Paisley All Stars, yes or no?
Yes, definite yes. Well, you did have that thing in Los Angeles and San Francisco about 10 years ago where you had 3 o'clock, Bangles, Rain Parade, and Dream Syndicate.
Yes.
If you put all those bands together and brought them to the UK, that'd be great.
Let's do it. Let's make sure it happens somehow.
Oh my gosh. Who do we have to call? Who's got Pat Thomas's number? Let's see. We're going to start there and move.
Yeah.
Because Clive is very influential too. He got Ray Parade to add Noisy Way Down. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Somehow the three of us have to figure out how to get in. Oh, I could just imagine that. Because literally we had the Bangles, Rain Parade, Dream Syndicate. All we needed was one member, at least one of the 3 o'clock and Paisley All Stars.
Well, we got about a minute and a half. One last question that I had for you, Clive, is we kind of had that on, we haven't really talked about the encore too much, but the encore performances brought the Rain Parade and the Dream Syndicate together. What did you think about those songs that they played for the encore where all those members, including a Bengal, were on stage together?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I guess they were going to play Hero Takes a Fall because the Dream Syndicate did it on the 3x4 album, so I was expecting that. But they also did You Are My Friend again from 3x4, and have Matt and Steve on that. That was great. And then, of course, Too Little Too Late with Vicky on vocals. That was an unexpected treat.
Yeah.
And then kind of Glory television tribute.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we only got a couple seconds left, Clive. We really wanted to thank you for joining us today and giving your input. And it was great to meet you face to face, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to do so.
I hope so. Bring the band over again, and I hope to see both of you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Clive.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So, Soraya, that was really cool to have Clive back on again. And somebody who's attended 7, if you he tells us about the
That
Rain
extra,
Parade.
yeah,
Yeah.
that extra show.
So we get
Look,
a different perspective of, and somebody that's seen multiple shows. So that was really, really cool.
I think one of the neatest thing about this tour, one were the venues. They were just interesting venues. And I think it's because I'm used to where I've seen these groups here in California. And then, I walk into a completely different space, but the fans were fervent. I mean, not that they aren't here, but it was just neat. It's a different perspective. And I think one of the things that Clive brought to my attention is this constantly evolving, set list and energy. And I think just comfort level, especially when we're talking about Vicky Peterson, stepping in for Jason Victor on these dates. This was really a unique tour. And the fans were super appreciative to see them. And I know, you and I talked with people at shows, and especially in Glasgow, people were really, there were people there that said, yeah, last time I saw Rain Parade was in 1985. And I'm so glad that they're back.
Yeah.
And it's like people have just been patiently waiting, and, if you build it, they will come, if you play, they'll come.
Yes.
And even 3 folks will jump on a plane and go over. And we met a couple, they were from
Ohio.
And they came over. We saw them in Glasgow, it's good to see that live music is back. One, we've had a very long break thanks to COVID, but it's just good to see people getting to see bands they've waited a long time to see.
Yes.
And we got some real treats on this tour, and it was just fun. It was just fun all the way around. And it was just a unique experience, especially because fans had an opportunity to sit and chat.
Yeah.
Have a moment to say thank you, get things signed. A lot of times when the venue's rather large, you don't have that opportunity unless, you wait when you're backstage or, but this was really unique. And I think I think that's what made it really different and special.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me, Soraya, was that not only did we have opportunities to speak with the band members, we had opportunities to speak with fellow fans. And there's that community there that's just like an instant bond because of our love for music and specifically for these bands. So we got to meet some fantastic people that I imagine will be friends for life.
Well, we also haven't mentioned that the podcast got a shout out in Liverpool.
Oh, yes. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Steve
So
Wynn.
it was very, very sweet. Steve Wynn gave our podcast a shout out from the stage. Tripped a little on the name because it is long. Let's say let's speak the truth here. But then he automatically corrected himself. But and that brought so he says, oh, and Paisley Stage Raspberry, Paisley Stage. How did he start? Paisley Sage. Wait,
I think he said parsley and rhyme or something.
That's
like
it.
That.
But then he fixed it, and and someone from the audience said, "Wait!" And he said, "It's a podcast about Paisley Underground." And then someone from the audience said, "Go slower." We're like they were writing it down.
So funny enough, we had like 15 new subscribers that night.
So thank you, new friends.
Yes.
And it was just great to meet people who had either heard it or just, standing around waiting in between sets. And people go, oh, are you from here? What, how many of these shows have you seen? It was just really cool.
Mhm.
and then when you're standing in a room, what did Clive say about, in the first stop, it was 100, 150 people. When you're in a room with 100 to 150 of your newest, closest friends, you get to talking.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that was really cool.
Very
But
cool. Yep. And
this was, this was, I'm so glad we took this trip and got to
okay.
see these incarnations of these bands, because it was just a lot of fun, one, and just really unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And getting to meet people, um, like I said,
yeah,
fellow fans, and not only at the show, sorry, but just when we were out and about in Scotland, and just all the people that we met were fantastic. Just great island. So it was a great trip. I
I
really
can't
enjoyed
say
it.
enough good things
Hmm.
about being in Scotland and being in the UK and that time there. Um, but just to kind of wrap up this discussion about these shows, there are quite a few fan videos out on social media. So, definitely spend some time if you want to kind of piece together or at least see some of the shows or some of the songs. Trust me, they're out there. They're on YouTube, some on Facebook. And people were really generous in sharing their photos and videos. It was a good environment. I mean, it was a quick tour. I mean, because I think they
10 days.
spent, it was like one day, one day, one day, they had a day off and then kept going.
Yeah, I think they only had 1 day break out of the 10 days, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
But it was a great tour, and we cannot wait to continue to see them. We've got a Rain Parade album coming out at,
June
um,
2nd is what they're saying. We'll see.
I mean, the last date that we saw online, either via Bandcamp or maybe their Twitter account, is June,
Yeah.
June of 23. So hopefully we'll have it, but we've got this show is happening in May, and I'm crossing my fingers that we get more shows. And you and I, Jeff, are not adverse to getting on the road and going to see them. We've done it before,
Or in
and we'll
the
do it
air.
again.
Yeah, or we'll
We've
jump in the
crossed an ocean now.
air. Yes. Soraya, something that came up in our conversation with Clive was a question that you asked, and it was what was a favorite song in a Dream Syndicate set, but we didn't get to hear your opinion of that. So I'm asking that same question to you for Rain Parade and Dream Syndicate. Was there one particular song that stood out as a favorite for you on this European live tour?
Okay, so I have to reiterate, I only saw two shows. They were both in Glasgow. So I was fortunate to hear John Coltrane Blues. It's become one of my favorite songs. But it was the second night in Glasgow when they did Days of Wine and Roses. It was a very punk Days of Wine and Roses.
Yeah, it was.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dream Syndicate. And there's a new song from Rain Parade that I just couldn't shake. And it's Share Your Love.
Yes, that one's
It's a really beautiful song. And I mean that I heard it two nights, and both nights it brought tears to my eyes. Like, it really just took me. And that was my favorite.
yeah.
That was, I mean, honestly. And then when I think about, if I had to think of an older song, if it's not Share Your Love, well, we heard No Easy Way Down, which is, and I always love that.
Yeah.
And we had Dennis Duck on drums. I mean, it was just a cool song. Yeah.
Yeah. Good picks. Good picks. All right, Soraya. Like you said,
Oh,
we're not
Jeff.
we're not adverse to seeing some more shows. And one last thing, we just found out that the 3 o'clock will be performing a song as part of the Wild Honey Nuggets show in the middle of May in Los Angeles as well.
May the 19th at the Alex Theater here in the Los Angeles area, specifically in Glendale, California. Please, this is a wonderful foundation, Wild Honey Foundation. Proceeds from these shows go towards autism research. Please support it. It's a fantastic foundation no matter what. I am angry that I will not be in town for this show.
Oh,
Due to a family commitment.
yeah.
But it's okay because I know others who are going, and but they listen to what they're doing. For this show, it is going to be a Nuggets show. Remember all those shows we did on the Nuggets box here? Boom. Now
Yeah.
we're going to have live music, people playing these. It's a Wild Honey Foundation show, but really it's Lenny Kaye who's kind of organizing and getting the musicians together. And Paisley Underground, 3:00.
Yeah.
3:00 gonna be playing that.
Yeah.
Now I have my guess as to what song they're playing, but who knows?
Yeah.
And the lineup continues to have musicians added on. This is going to be a spectacular night that I will not be here.
Oh.
But if you're able to, please support and please attend and enjoy good music. Live music is back, thank goodness.
Yes.
And people are healthy, and it's time to support these musicians and just good music, fun music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a good community.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny Eccles is going to be there from
Love.
Love. I mean, every day they just add a name, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, Ray Clive's going to be there. Our friend of the podcast, Ronnie Barnett, and Roy.
Yes, they're going to be
Yeah, and Roy
performing
McDonald. They're going to be there.
with Peter Zaremba from the Flesh Tones.
So, I mean, too many names,
Yeah.
all good,
Yes.
and an amazing foundation.
Agreed.
So, all right, Jeff. We keep chit-chatting. We need to just be quiet.
Yes, indeed.
All right, mi gente. Agruviar.
Grew on Paisley, people.
Kathy the Grand All-Stars. Here's a killer song from a rain parade that we love playing this. Try to do it justice.
Cozy.
It's good though. It's good though, you know? You feel the love, you feel the love. Come on, Matt, let's do this. Take it. You are my friend, side by side to end.